Let's roll. This is Countercharge, your podcast for ranks, flanks, and kings of war. Join your hosts as they delve into the world of Panithor and bring you worldwide coverage of all things Kings of War.
Welcome to Countercharge. I'm Rob Panoff.
I'm Matt Croger.
And I'm Jeremy Duvall. We're really excited to get our sort of first episode with all our progress for the Mantic Slow Grow League. We mentioned it in a few episodes. Really, all three of us are really excited. And Slow Grow is always a great opportunity to get new players into the game, but not just for new players. I think it's good for getting revitalized for us players maybe who are in between, not sure what to do. And I think a lot of us going into Forthright, many of us armies are not functioning right now. So what a better opportunity to get something up to speed than to do a slow grow challenge. So I know all three of us are excited. So today we're going to skip our usual intro hobby section because the whole episode basically it was all going to be around the hobby we're doing. But we will do community updates. Let's start with you, Rob. What have you been up to in your neck of the woods?
Nothing. It's the nicest thing I can say. They just had a tournament last Saturday. Didn't go. I haven't played a Games of Kings of War in probably 3 weeks. Like, it's just been busy at work. So as we record this, next Saturday, we have the Blue City Brawl. So I'll be playing with Dan. We'll probably be the first team ever to win the event and then come in last place next year. Because we didn't spend any time on the hobby because 4th edition. So he's taking an army he already had painted, which is Trident Realms, and I'm taking Ogres. And I'm taking a fun list, though. Taking, like, chariots, and, you know, it's a fun list. I don't think it'll do very well against the shooting that's going to show up. Commandants are pretty good, if you haven't heard. But, yeah, that's for me. Blue City Brawl is coming up. And then, honestly, I have nothing else on my radar. So we'll see. We'll see what comes up. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, so for me, pretty similar, actually. I haven't played a game in weeks either. So just, been crazy busy. But there's plenty happening locally. Jats locally had already started a slow grow event before Mantic announced theirs. So that's tying in with that. So he's doing a great job organising that. But in Australia, I think there's a good dozen tournaments over the next few months. So there's plenty happening in the community. I'm just not getting to participate at the moment. So that's the thing. And I think, Rob, you said to me that Blue City might be your only tournament of the year, the way your year's looking.
It very well could be that possibility, given that I'm traveling and I went to Southern California. I've been to Austin. I'm going to be going to Costa Rica at some point. I'm going to Oklahoma City. As they give me more and more process engineering responsibility worldwide, I have less and less time. So it's unfortunate, Matt, because, 5 years ago, this was not the case, right? I was remediating remotely from home, and it gave me a lot more flexibility, but now I'm in the office at least 4 days a week. So it's definitely a change of pace. I don't know about you guys. When I get home at 5:30, 6 o'clock, I'm tired, and then I sit for maybe a couple hours, then I'm in bed by 8 because I'm up at 4. With all that being said, I'm not getting to play much. I am hobbying. So I am squeezing in hobby here and there where I can. We're going to talk about some of that today because I'm really excited about, the halfling list that I've got started. But what about you, Jeremy?
Similar to you, Rob, work is really busy, but not just work. Family life is really busy. My stepson's in baseball. So, and because Stacy works and commutes, and I work from home, I'm essentially on full baseball duty. So that's like 3 practices a week, a game on the weekends. My stepdaughter's in cheerleading. So just a lot of family stuff going on, which makes it not so much difficult to do like night hobby. Like I'm still getting that in. But as far as taking like a full weekend to go somewhere right now is pretty challenging. But as far as the greater local community, we just had Riddle of Steel. Congratulations to Nick Murray for taking first place finally. I will say, I wasn't there. Britton wasn't there. No, I'm just kidding.
I was waiting for the Jeff Swan style humble brag.
Yeah, I was going to slag off Nick for having to wait until the majority of us weren't there to win. But, he had to play John Green and beat John Green. John Green's a great player from Texas, so he still had to play and beat some tough people. So, Nick, I love you. Congratulations. And I already have 3 first place Riddle trophies, so I've just kind of run out of room for first place Riddle trophies. So I'm glad it can go to someone who has more room on their trophy shelf.
Wow. I was going to say, Jeremy, you don't have room for trophies because of all the toys you have.
Yeah, the hobby shelf's been reorganized, hasn't it?
You're like, I'm into Star Wars, and I can see, the long haul and hook set over there. Do you have the rest of them? But you haven't put yours together yet.
No, because I don't have a great spot to display them assembled. I'm kind of keeping them in the box for now, but I'm not inherently I got to keep all my stuff sealed.
So you're not an MIB
Not
collector.
necessarily. So,
Yeah.
But it's more of like I don't have a spot. I want to make some like background dioramas and stuff, like scenes from the movie, from cartoons or the movies or whatever. But
is this what you're getting with your new pocket money from doing the baseball runs?
Well, yeah. I mean.
Well, I will tell you that when you go to put them together, you're going to have to watch videos. Probably the most complicated Transformer. I mean, there's 6 guys that go together.
Yes, for the newer Devastator. But this year it's the 40th anniversary of the Transformers the movie, so they're doing what they're called the Apology Tour this year.
For killing off Optimus Prime.
Yeah, for killing off Optimus Prime. So I've already, pre-ordered some things that no adult should waste their money on. They have a cool thing. It's like a life-size matrix of leadership that you can open. And when you open it, it plays You Got the Touch. Pre-ordered that. A bunch of those sold out real quick. Yeah, so basically I've somehow decided that I want to recreate Toys R Us if you were a kid of the 80s and you know what Toys R Us was like. I want to have a room in my house that makes you feel like Toys R Us.
Go on YouTube, and there's a gentleman named Michael Mercy from Canada who has done that.
Okay. I've become really obsessed with, they're called Blockies. It's a company that makes all sorts of different, kind of in the homage and style to Gunpla, in that you don't need glue or anything to, it's all snap fit. But they have bigger sets, they have blind boxes where you open, you don't know who you're going to get. But I've been building those with Grant some, because he's really into robots right now. So we got Battletech. So I taught him how to prime. So that was a cool thing that happened, is my 7-year-old and I were out in the garage with a rattle can, teaching him about mold lines and cleaning models. So I'm trying to take him through all the steps, but do it like the right way and teach him patience. And so we got all of our Battletech robots primed and ready to go. So that's cool. So he's been enjoying that.
I was just being transported to our end of year episode, and we're going to look behind Jeremy, and he's going to have this incredible toy room with all these shelves and new toys, and we're going to say, what did you paint? And he's going to hold up a box of nothing.
And it's tough. We've talked about the difficulties and challenges of painting. I have been doing a lot of painting, but it's been for other games. So that's always the thing. And that's another reason why I'm so excited for the hobby challenge, is to get me back excited doing Mantic stuff. Because I'm not playing Kings of War at all right now. Kyle Timberlake, one of my main online UB partners, his computer went down for a little bit. Tom Annis has been busy with life. So a lot of my normal UB partners have been busy. And that's essentially how I get games in, because I don't play locally really. So that's another reason why I'm excited about the slow grow, to try to maybe get some juice back into the Mantic side. But, have finished some other stuff. But excited about Riddle of Steel. They had a great time. It went really good. I know one of our players is heading down to Rob's neck of the wood for Blue City Brawl. Adepticon is around the corner. Curious to see what Adepticon is going to look like. I know, Rob, I think you've had the drop right because you got work.
100%. Yeah, I can't go. Now, what's going to be interesting is they've pivoted from having their own room to moving down into the main hall with GW. So that'll be interesting to hear feedback this year from the players to see if that was a good thing, because the positive thing about that is that you're going to have players seeing Mantic games being played, whether it's Halo or Kings of War. The negative is you're in a giant room, and sometimes it's hard to see the trees through the forest.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think there's upsides and downsides. As far as visibility, you can't get more visible than in the showroom. People are walking through the vendor hall. Usually the showroom's like right connected to that space. Usually on that main space last year on the vendor hall, they had all of AMG's stuff too, which is really, a lot of people are walking by playing that. So you lose a little bit of that sort of like, we're all together in a room that's kind of secluded and warm and fuzzy and like, tuckered in for the nights type vibe, I guess. But you do get a little bit more visibility. Should be interesting. I know for me, it's tough in those noisy places since I'm deaf in one ear. I find it really challenging sometimes at tournaments to hear people. So I'm curious to see sort of what is the noise going to be like. And thankfully, we're not really recording this year, Rob, since you're not going to be there. But I imagine recording in that environment would have been an absolute nightmare.
It'd be impossible. And shout out to Mantic. They did let me know that was happening, and there wouldn't be like a dedicated space to set up. So, it worked out well for everybody. But I appreciate them reaching out.
Yeah, so if they're going to do it, let's do it on a year that Rob's not going to be there, right?
Right,
So,
right, exactly.
And damn you, Rob, for actually having a life.
Well, I don't know if it's a life.
Rob was actually the catalyst for the change. They're like, well, he's not going to be there. Let's go to the main hall.
Yeah, I just love it, Rob. It's like, what are we going to do this year? Let's touch base with Rob first and see where is Rob going to be. But yeah, it should be interesting, So I think there is a lot. I think people are just starting to get the feel for Fourth. We've had some events. I think we're beginning to sort of. We just had a FAQ come out, right? So we're past that initial, brand new, and now we're starting to get a little bit of data. I think we saw our first army that had some issues, which has been FAQ'd, right, with our shooty frogs. So it should be interesting. I'm really curious to see how Adepticon goes this year, what the numbers look like, how will it be having that down in the main hall. So it should be pretty exciting. Okay, well, we're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we'll get into the Slow Grow Challenge. We will be right back.
I'm Stephen Devonish, winner of 2026 Clash Australia, and you're listening to Countercharge.
And we are back. So, Matt, I'm going to start with you. Slow Grow Challenge. When you were thinking about what army were you going to pick first, let us know what army you're doing. And was this something that you were already sort of starting to work on or think about before the Slow Grow? Did it come into your mind specifically for the Slow Grow? Or what faction are you going to be doing?
So I have selected Trident Realms. So I'd already purchased a whole bunch of Zerkali stuff. But I did have a mega army box of Trident Realms from a year, maybe 2 years ago. And I'd been wanting to do them for a while. And I just thought, well, there's a bunch of people doing Zerkali at the moment locally. Well, not necessarily super locally, but, for some tournaments coming up. So I thought, well, I'll just stick them on the back burner for a while and I might lean into the Trident Realms. And of course, they had the benefit of some of those gorgeous new models of the Depth Horrors and the Placoderms. So they took my fancy. So I bought some extra stuff and more recently a big order for some more. And I just thought, well, let's see where we can take this and, not going to lean into Depth Horror or Placoderm spam or anything like that. But, and I'm actually not going to build too much to a list because I'm just going to get stuff done and where I've started with is the bases.
So you don't have necessarily your hard 2,300 point list in mind. You're more of gonna just start building what you think are like kind of key core components.
Yeah, and I think I've assembled a bunch of models, and it was more just like, well, I've opened that box with the Mega Army box, so let's assemble the rest of those and get them assembled, get a whole bunch of stuff primed, and then I can just be a bit selective as I go. I tell you, what I didn't realise starting is one of the advantages of the Trident Realms is there's quite a bit in that army that's just larger models. So I don't think it's going to be too challenging to get 2,300 points done. So that's going to be a positive for me. But yeah, it was, and they feel more complete as a list than they have in the past. When I've previously looked at Trident Realms, I've looked at them and I've been like, it just didn't quite work in my head for me. Whereas I think now they're a bit more complete.
And did that kind of come into your mind thinking about like wanting to pick an army that was in that sort of first book? Because I know when Rob and I talk about our choices, that was something that was orbiting us when we were thinking about what army we want to do for a slow grow, of picking one that's in the first book, so it's a little bit more complete.
Yeah, I think to an extent, a bit of dumb luck as well. But I think it was more that because the book coincided with some new models too, more than anything, I think. So, it was more just the models available. And, then I'm going to get, although so much is out of stock at Mantic at the moment, it's hard to get. Our suppliers had trouble getting a hold of a whole bunch of stuff. Like I want to get a Kraken and get it on the table and get Kraken on a Kraken. What are you shaking your head about, Robert? Yeah, and I also like the idea of being able to from the hobby perspective of, play with some coral colors and things like that on the bases. So yeah, it probably wasn't so much the new book other than the fact that there was new models that go with it.
Cool. And I know you've touched briefly on it before, Rob, but just you're still sticking with the halflings for your choice?
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, it's one of the armies in the invasion book, so I know it's probably not going to change substantially. It's also an army that I have tons of models in the garage in my pile of opportunities. So, like, I'm not planning to buy any models except for probably like the new stuff, like the not How to Train Your Dracon, right, and the Fat Dragon in a Wheelbarrow. So, but yeah, so for me, it's 2,000 points for the slow grow, and it's 6-week increments times 4, right? So 4 increments of 500 points a pop in 6 weeks increments. So what I'm going to do for the first one is I'm kind of like Matt. I'm not building a list. I'm grabbing models I want to paint and I'm just painting them. And right now I'm leaning towards maybe just doing 2 of the different units that I like. And so I've started with Forest Trolls. I think I would play them as a regiment. What I don't know is, would I ever play them as a troop? I'm not sure. And that's something I'm still thinking about. Now, what I am doing, which I think is pretty fresh, is I'm building them like the Forest Troll Gunners. And then what I'm doing is I've added a magnet to the mount where the guy stands in the back. And when they're not going to be used as gunners, I'm going to have like an apple barrel. The guy's plucking apples out of the tree or something, and he's putting them in his backpack. And so the goal would be to be able to have a replaceable, this apple barrel, which I'll run them just regular Forest Trolls. Or maybe I'll call them Apple Tree Trolls or something like that. Maybe I'll have to change their name. Or I'll put the actual gunner on there and run them as Forest Troll Gunners.
Well, that's cool to give you flexibility, right? That's a great idea.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm doing. It's taking a lot longer. I haven't had the time to do as much as I wanted. So I am behind the 8 ball. But yeah, getting the conversion right. And I'm still looking for what the barrel's going to look like. The apple, I don't know, like a wicker basket of some sort. I'm trying to pick the exact thing that I can put on there. So there's that. So if I go with 2 Forest Troll hordes, that's only 380 points. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm gonna I'll just the points are exactly work out perfectly. Maybe just do a regiment of, or I guess a troop of Edge Grenadiers. Right now, what you guys are maybe hearing all that, those are all specialists. I'm probably gonna do the core stuff later because I don't know what to take. Right, I really don't know, and I am still not sure that we finally, that we've seen like the final movement in terms of what's going on with shooting. Right, shooting is oppressive. Right, can be oppressive if you don't have any self-restraint. So I'm just wondering, like, like for example, poachers, they're specialists. I could see myself taking those, but like the gunners and stuff, that like the halfling rifles, I'm a little bit leery of leaning into that and then have them pull the rug out from underneath me. Like, oh, now they're an extra 50 points a unit. I don't know that would be the case because, as we said, that's a book that's pretty locked in. But if they come back and they want to reduce the shooting a little bit, you guys, this feels just like 2.0. Right, to me, where we had issues with, like, originally was flyers, and they had to find a way to solve the flying issue. So what they ended up doing was making, if they were disordered in combat, right, then they lose their fly. And now that disorder is not even a thing, it's really hard to shut down shooting. So I don't know, maybe they're just okay with it. Maybe they're just like, you know what, it is what it is. But I'm hesitant to go super heavy as of right now. So, but what I'm working on is 2 hordes of Forest Trolls and a regiment. I keep saying regiment of troop. This thing is going to kill me, guys. Even though, if you go back to our episode like 10 years ago, we had a conversation with Dan King from the Rules Committee at the time. And he said large infantry was designed to be a regiment and a troop. That was the original intent. And somehow it manifested into this horde and regiment. So it's what it should have been all along. It makes sense. But now that I've been saying it the other way for 10 years, it's hard for me to twist it. But yeah, I've started to play with colors. The Forest Trolls, I'm looking at like an auburn color. Jeremy, this is a slow grow, but it's also a speed project a little bit. So I'm going back to colors I know how to paint. I know which tricolor set from our good friends at Reaper. I know exactly what to do. I've done it hundreds of times. I mean, my salamanders have this color, on the tyrants and the Lachilodons and stuff. So I'm gonna kind of do that. And then the tricky part is I know the auburn color that I want. It's fall, so I'm debating, is it yellows and reds and greens? And so I'm trying to figure out those secondary colors because auburn will be the primary color on the Forest Trolls. I'm not sure yet what, like, halflings themselves. I know I'm not doing yellow. I don't I don't want to paint yellow, but maybe it's a green or maybe it's a red. I don't know. So it's still early days, but what I am not doing, and Matt's doing the same thing, I'm not making a list. At some point I'll have to see what I've painted and then actually make a list of it, but I'm just sort of giving myself the building blocks to make an army, because I kind of want to have one of these like armies of two of, many of the different units. It does feel like a little bit like cheating though on this first go, because I'm doing forest trolls, right? It's like, I don't know, 10, 11 models, and you got like 380 points. But you know what? Eventually I got to paint halflings, so it'll all even out in the wash.
Yeah, Jeremy, how do you come about what you're going to select and sit on your shelf?
Yeah, I'll tell you where you can put that.
On the shelf.
Yeah, on the shelf. On your shelf. So I'm doing Zerkali. Unlike your neck of the woods, there isn't as much of that around my area. / since I don't play with anyone, I can do whatever I want because I have no armies not to do. But I, on the other hand, different to you guys, I did make a list. Just my brain, I don't know how to function without a specific list to build towards. And it was a list that, looking at Zerkali, unfortunately, always through that competitive lens that I'm like OCD to look at. It's one that both popped out to me as competitive / also easy to put together because it has a lot of, large cav. So here's my list. It's 13 drops. And I built mine to 2,300 points, though. I know the thing is for 2,000, but I'm thinking 2,300. That will give me a little extra points, and then it will set me up to have sort of, as we're still trying to figure out what's going to be the competitive landscape points-wise moving forward. 2,300 is what it was, so might as well stick with that. So I got a Beastmaster with Inspiring Talisman. I got 2 Yan Lieutenants mounted. One thing that Zerkali, it doesn't really have like chaff per se, so I'm doing the like mounted cheap hero, right? As a run around, be annoying, they're very inspiring, which is nice. Plus, just throw them as missiles when you got to do chaff. My core are 4 regiments of the Brotherhood of Yan. Cheap, 85 points, right? 85-point regiments, 15 nerve, Iron Resolve, which is nice. I think Iron Resolve in the game, with how the wavering has changed, I think is a little bit more, I feel like it has more value. It feels stronger. Iron Resolve, healing in general, does feel stronger. So I got four units of those, and then the main core of the unit, both for strength but also paint wise, is I have 4 regiments of Lion Snarl cavalry. So that should be nice, right? Good hard hitting units, really cool. I love how they look. I can do cool basing with them. Plus, it's large cav, so it's less to paint. And then the list sort of rounds itself out with then 2 of the Goklu, which are like the dragon serpent thing. So that gives me 2 cool monsters to paint. I'm thinking of doing a, like, I don't know, like a sun dragon and a night dragon, or like a star dragon and to have the 2. I'm thinking both of them are going to be parallel opposites of each other. Maybe I'll do like a yin and yang thing, like a white dragon and a black dragon. But I'm thinking I'm going to do them as like twins to each other, something like that. So that's my list. 13 drops, some good stuff, I think, from the list. Theme-wise, I'll go over a little bit of my theme, and then maybe you guys could riff on what theme you're doing.
Have you got all the models yet, Jeremy?
No, and here's an issue we got to talk about.
Let's talk about it.
Getting stuff right now is a real pain in the tuchus. My local store likes to both order directly from Mantic, but also sometimes he wants to order from Alliance. Alliance is one of the big game distributors here in the US. The difference there, I think, I don't know his, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but maybe as a business with one distributor, you have one deal, right, where you can buy stuff on credit and then pay them back, or maybe you get a certain discount here or whatever. Or if you buy from a different distributor, you get it shipped. Who knows all the shebangs. But Alliance in the US, as of this week, I think they're just getting stuff. They've had nothing for 4th edition. So no books, no models, no anything. I have not got any of my stuff yet. Eventually, it's hard to do a Mantic order. I don't know if this is true, but my sense is when he's ordering just a few things for me, it's a little more difficult for him to order direct from Mantic, when instead, if he orders from a distributor that has other stuff he needs, he can just add on the Kings of War stuff?
That's definitely the case because there's a minimum shipping, I think, when you order direct. And so our local guy's been doing similar as we tried to do a big direct to cover the minimum shipping order. And even Mantic were out of stuff and just really slowly communicating. I ended up reaching out to Ronnie. But yeah, the distributor who you can also order from here hasn't had a lot of stock, which, yeah, like you say, Jeremy, it's hard to know did the distributor not order in time? Like, because it's not that popular a product. It's hard to know where the significant issue is.
I don't want to put blame on it because I don't know the cogs. I just know it's been a pain in the butt to get it, and I don't have my 4th edition. I don't even have my book yet, and it's February.
Especially when you know your boxes will turn up and you'll have to replace something anyway.
Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind, Jeremy, is Alliance Distribution was part of Diamond Comics, and they went bankrupt, and so that Alliance distributor was auctioned off, basically. All right, and actually, funny story, does tie it back to action figures. NECA has a has a subsidiary called Ad Populum, who is the one that eventually acquired Alliance Distribution. So
I didn't know that.
Look, it was still going to be messed up, but if you're going through a liquidation like that and bankruptcy, and it's been 6 months. It's been a while, but I wonder how much of that's slowing things down. Because I mean, if I was Mantic, I don't know. If you got a distributor in liquidation, I don't know that, or in bankruptcy, I don't know that I would. Even though you've got a new owner, you got to set that up. You got to get new terms. So
I'm supposed to actually do some TTS or play UB, or Brian, the owner of the Loose Caboose. We're supposed to hang out this weekend, play a game, and I think we're going to talk about it. It may be where I just order it myself from Mantic. And because whenever possible, I want to buy it. And this is still a problem. They got to solve this problem. And I don't know the answer to it, or I don't know, but I really want to be able to just go to my local store and buy Mantic stuff. And whatever the case is, it always seems like there's a barrier. And I don't know where the barrier is coming from, who it's coming from, or whatever, but it always seems to be a barrier about going down to my local game store and buying Mantic product. So I don't know. We're going to talk this weekend and see if it still makes sense for me to order it through him, or with all of the fees, if it ends up being to where he's not making that much money off of it, maybe I'll just order my army myself. But I did notice. So I don't know. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on, I mean, that's been kind of I think we can say 4th has had a lot of positives, but also we got to be true to some of the negatives, and some of the availability around the stuff, to me, again, through my little lens, has seemed kind of difficult to actually get your hands on the stuff.
Wow, what a downer he is.
Where's our positive man?
Do you think that's fair to say? I mean,
totally fair.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I was able to get my stuff through my store, but he placed an order like back in, I don't know, October or something of last year, November, a long time ago. So it's a different animal. And Mike orders regularly from Mantic directly, and I think that is a lot better from a timing standpoint. Now, that being said, there's smaller stores that aren't going to be carrying, $1,000 or $500. You know what I mean? Because that's right. I don't know the exact number, but it's several $100s to place an order, and it's I don't remember, $300 or $400 to probably get free shipping. Well, $300 or $400, that's equivalent of like $600. $700 on MSRP. And so that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And particularly shipping to and from the States is particularly problematic, and slow and costly over the last, few years.
And what do you guys think? I'm curious in looking at what I'm going to get in my army, some things did kind of jump out at me. So the Yan regiment, which is the basic troops, is $50. So $50 for a regiment of plastic infantry. I mean, I'm starting to think about it, and I'm like, okay.
How many models? Is that 20?
Yeah, 20 plastic models, $50. I think that's probably, feels like it's in the ballpark. The Dragon is $75, which makes sense. $75 for a monster. The Lion Snarl Cavalry Regiment is $75, which feels kind of pricey to me.
It's the resin still, I think.
It's still resin, right?
It's their resin stuff is just so highly costed because of the labor and everything going into it. So I think that's where probably their biggest price problems are. But like you said, with the big dragon, $75.
Seems super fair.
Some other companies are doing $150, you know?
No, I think that's priced really well. I feel the Dragon is priced really well. The $50 for a plastic regiment is fine because I could probably, for my 4 regiments, get 3 regiment boxes, and with those, spread those out between the 4 regiments. Like, I don't think I need or get that 4th regiment, and I can have some extra guys for whatever. So I was trying to think about, like, what's the army going to cost? And it's probably going to cost what you think a brand new army would cost, right? Between $500 and $700, somewhere around there, which is, I think, probably what you should expect nowadays.
Depends on how much resin you're putting in, right? So if you lean more
Yeah.
into like the battalion, which is like what, $150, that's that's like, I don't know, 6-7 units, right? And now that's all hard plastic.
So I think you're right, Matt and Rob. I think it really is that resin component. If you're not resin printing yourself, and I don't even know if the Lion Snarl Cavalry are on the vault yet.
Not yet.
STLs.
No.
I doubt they will be for a while.
Yeah, because so if you're buying that resin from Mantic, you are going to pay a premium. But I think our sense is, do we feel all the new Mantic resin is pretty good? That's what don't they have like a new resin formula that they're using now? I thought I had heard somewhere.
Yeah, the same stuff they've been using for the Champion Heroes.
Yeah, and that stuff's pretty good. I mean, I haven't really bought resin. I mean, that's the only, I've done some of the Champions, but I haven't bought any of their unit resin stuff since they've done.
What's it called? Mastercrafted or something like that, I think. The name of the resin.
Yeah.
Yes, somewhere around that, something like that. Yeah.
Well, and I do know that there was an issue with their first round of dragons that went out, so I think they've probably been playing catch up in the resin department.
Oh, like pieces were miscast, or what were missing stuff, or what? Do you know what the issue was?
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of the dragons with their tails missing,
Bummer.
the tail piece. Yeah. So that had to be corrected. So.
But what I was able to do, in lack of, and I feel this is something I think maybe you can speak to, Matt. I don't have the models yet, but what do have? I have my basing stuff. So I was trying to think about what was the theme, and I had originally begun with, like, looking at Pan-Asian terrain. And I was like, well, and I think even like Rob was help inspire this idea is, well, the Zerkali are invading, right? So what do I already have a lot of basing materials for? My Northern Alliance Ice Elves. Where might the Zerkali want to go hunting magic people? Remember, there's some mystery about what's hidden in Chill and the Northern. Yeah, the Northern. So it makes sense that the Zerkali would be invading Northern Alliance. And I really dig this late fall, early winter. I have all the basing materials. I had a 3D printer that was working that is now not working. But that's
hey, join the club. I still haven't fixed the one at work that I broke. So
and I just telling myself that's part of owning 3D printers is they're not going to be up and running all the time. That you are every now and then going to run into.
That's why you need 3.
Why you take it off? Yeah, So I'm going to do my Zerkali base the exact same way as my Northern Alliance. So Elf Ruins, late fall, early winter. So then that way, when I'm running a demo and I have my Northern Alliance and my Zerkali, they'll be on the same basing. And then also it will be cool. The Zerkali are invading an Ice Elf Northern Alliance city.
Man, you need to add like little snowshoes to you guys. They're like stomping through. They're coming.
Oh,
they're like,
that'd be cool.
Well, as I was going to say, as long as the people you're running demo with don't mind empty bases, it's like
Well, I mean,
yeah, that's true.
I don't know what to say.
You're playing on UB, so it's okay.
I have enjoyed seeing your bases coming together, though.
Yeah, so I've started the 4 regiment bases for my Brotherhood of Yan because my thing is I always try to tend to pick out the one thing that I love. And instead, this project, I'm going to do speed paint. So I'm doing this whole project going to be, I call it like the whole idea of contrast plus, right? Of have your foundation be speed paint and then go in and do some details and some really nice basing. So
I reckon it's going to change your life, Jeremy. You're going to be like,
I'm hoping.
What? I could have been doing this for years.
Exactly. And then since I'm playing a little MCP, those are individual models. So I can still get if I want to paint one model to the best of my ability, I can still do that for a game system where that makes sense. But painting in a game system that you have 100+ models, painting every single model to the absolute best of your like tens of hours. It's just is not feasible with my lifestyle anymore.
No, and you strike me as someone too that once you've decided you're going to do something, the problem is you've painted one, and then they all have to be like that, right?
Exactly. Like you guys have seen my 2024 year of the ice elemental.
Yeah, he's finally picking up on what we're putting down, Matt. The ice elemental.
Yeah, I painted an ice elemental regiment that year, and they look amazing, right?
No,
and
he looks amazing.
Yeah, he looks amazing. Or she, whatever they identify as, I'm inclusive to my ice
It's
elementals.
one, though. It's singular.
Yes, one. I don't want to change that. So that's why also a thing that has me excited about this project is I get to start from scratch where the whole army will be painted the same way. So I'm going to paint at speed, a contrast plus or speed paint plus, which also will give me an excuse to buy more paint, which like I'm always in the market for, find excuses to buy more paints so that I could have them all.
I've been loading up on some more fanatics, that's for sure. And the funny thing for me is with this project is I've gone full circle. I'm doing the opposite now. I'm not going to use speed paints on this project.
Oh, so you're going to make it nice?
Well, no, but I'm going to try and use the airbrush more. So particularly for like laying down a dominant primary color or something, and then because I've been using the airbrush on the bases. Yeah, so for me, I'm going to try and go back to roots and see how we go.
And have you thought, I know Rob is doing a fall thing too. I'm doing my fall, winter. What are you thinking about for your Trident Realm theme-wise? I know you've started to work on some of your bases too, Matt. What are you thinking or what are you doing sort of basing theme-wise for your army?
So trying to go for kind of looking underwater with coral themes, but more not super dark water, more that turquoise, Caribbean kind of area. And then with the corals will pop a little bit. They're still kind of down near the bases that they'll still have a bit of bone color going on, but then just 2 or 3 colors and some greens. And then often in the past, what I've done is I've tried to have my models and my bases contrast quite heavily. So like my salamanders, the bases are super dark and then they're orange. Whereas they're going to draw off the corals around them a little bit more. So more of it. So I got all my blues onto my bases yesterday.
You got the blues?
So I got 40 bases, got the blues on there yesterday.
Oh, that looks great. Wow. So you made a bunch of progress.
I probably won't be ticking the actual Mantic slow grow boxes, unfortunately, like with the 600, certainly in their first chunk. I think I'll still be getting the bases done and then I'll hopefully come roaring home with the models.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, man. I don't know that I'll get all 500 points painted in 2 weeks, right? Because at this point, we started on February. It's mid-March, right? But I'll catch up on the back end. I've been really spending more time thinking about colors and theme and stuff like that. So, but I'll get there.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep working on basing until I get the models done, right? Because the basing's got to get done at some point. And that's one area in the speed project I want to put a little bit more time into is the bases.
Yeah, and that was the thing for me with doing like so many bases, because I'm kind of like you, Rob. I kind of want 2 of pretty much everything. But if the bases aren't done and I've moved because this won't be an army, I'll probably get 2,500, 3,000 points done and I won't, I'll be starting to do something else, but it makes it harder to come back to if I don't have the bases already done. So I'm I'm just going to get it done. And then that way, when I want to paint a model or 2 or a unit or 2 to add to it, then I can pick up the base. It's there and I've just got to do the models.
That makes sense, right?
Does it just make sense?
Yeah, it does. Get some of that busy work or get some of that, the stuff that just takes time, get that out of the way first. So then when you actually start painting models, you're excited. So.
Yeah. And it's not like my biggest barrier at the moment has been actually the desire to use the airbrush on these because, it's got to be clean and you got to set it up and then you got to, make sure that you're cleaning enough in between to keep it running properly even as you're using the paint. And so it's a bit of I've found that I need to be sitting down to doing an hour or so at least. You can't just pick it up and do 10 minutes that easily. Well, not for me anyway, but yeah.
No, I'm the same way with the airbrushes. You can't just go and paint for a half an hour or 25 minutes like you could if you had your rig. It's really, like you said, I'm going to airbrush for an hour or two at least, I think.
Well, guys, should we take a quick commercial break? And on the other side, let's maybe chat for 5 minutes on the new fact that just came out.
Let's get fact.
This is Alex from Mantic, and you're listening to Countercharge.
And welcome back. So, this week, gentlemen, we've seen the release of the first 4th edition FAQ, clarifying a few things, errata-ing quite a few others. No surprise to anyone. I mean, I don't think there's huge surprises in there. I mean, we had a bit of an idea it was coming because of my own plain stupidity of accidentally leaving the draft version that was used to Clash in a list file and then it getting out there on the internet. No huge surprises. I was pleased. I'd given some fairly heavy feedback on streamlining some of their answers, and I think that they've gone about doing that, which was good. How do you want to do this? Should we just go through it basically and look at each point and see if we've taken by surprise or anything? Yeah. Okay, so the first one we've got, can you clarify what all the various base sizes are for each type, including legacy ones? Why are some base sizes or unit types called legacy? So basically here they're just tidying up something that probably they should have never really just taken away. Because they've had so many exceptions to the rule, right? I mean, that's kind of the way I see it is, they tried to bring it back to a tight little number, but then there's so many things that have exceptions that it's caused a tiny bit of confusion.
Really, things like heavy infantry, monstrous infantry, those things, they just really were just trying to say that those are tied back to other unit types, like heavy infantry is treated as infantry. The heavy infantry size still exists. And I think that was the confusion, and yes, they could have written it a lot better, but now we have a nice table that clearly articulates the different unit sizes for each and every unit type in the game. So, I think it's a good thing. But it's kind of, for me, I didn't have an issue with it, but I can see why I can tell it was written poorly, and I can see there could be confusion. So, next up, we've got, if after declaring a multiple charge, it is found one of the units can't fit, would this unit then have counted as blocking terrain for others? This is kind of a no-brainer. Am I wrong, guys? This seems like pretty obvious stuff.
Oh, there was a whole bunch in this FAQ that I don't know if it's still there, but I was like, don't think this should be here. This is just rules as written.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you're multi-charging and you move one unit and then you go to try to move the other unit and then that other unit won't fit, it's now then not part of the charge. So that original unit has to treat that unit as blocking. It just intuitively makes sense, right? I think it's always a good idea. People have some blank bases sometimes is always useful. And before you actually move your unit, make sure everything fits.
Or some people only play with blank bases. So, that works too. Yeah. The next thing they have, question, when withdrawing through a friendly unit, is your unit always wavered? Or is it only wavered if your move was not long enough and you had to push through the extra unit distance? I thought that was very clear in the book, and yes, that's the answer. So if you don't roll enough distance to clear the friendly unit, you're wavered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was can you clarify when a command order? So this came up over the rules lawyers being like, can you do it when you're during your move, or is it before, or is it after? So basically they're saying do it whenever you want within the movement phase. You can move it at any point. So you can basically do a command as you're moving through space past a unit now. So they've clarified that. And then this was one that Fearless, as written, Fearless was that it was only not wavered during pretty much your shooting nerve rolls. And people wanted to clarify, was that actually meant to be the case? And it's been clarified that yes, it is. So wavering from, things like a withdraw move still stands.
Question, can you explain how wild charge works with or without loot tokens? Without a loot token, your charge distance is 2 times your speed plus the maximum possible wild charge distance. Bingo. If you hit the number, great. If not, give it a different order, which would mean you can't give it a different charge. With a loot token, you do the exact same thing. The difference is if you hit the number, right, which is 2 times your speed plus maximal wild charge distance, you now have the option to drop the token and then charge, right? Is that the big difference here, Matt?
Yeah, because normally when carrying a loot token, you wouldn't be able to use your wild charge. So it's basically giving you that. You're still having to declare a charge, but yeah, it's just giving you that look and going, well, find out your number before you decide.
But if I have a unit with wild charge holding a token and I just want to charge with them and keep the token, I can still charge with them and keep the token. I just don't get to use my wild charge.
Correct.
Okay. So this is just giving you an option if you're out of range holding a token, but after having discovered what your wild charge is, you are in range, you have an option to drop the token and then use your wild charge and charge.
Yes.
Maybe in play it's really simple, but that was one that I have a little hard time wrapping my head around how they worded it.
Yeah. And then next up, we have one for the rules wankers. Objective tokens rules state that you can check who controls them at the end of the game, but multiple scenarios make reference to controlling objective tokens over the course of the game. So the general rules at the end of the game, if a scenario says otherwise, you check it instead. Who would have thought you follow scenario rules?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm
Yes.
glad that's clear.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got if the unit with the Crystal Pendant of Retribution fails the withdraw nerve test and is routed, do the enemy units in contact suffer the hits and who's rolling for them? And the answer is yes. It explodes. The player whose turn it is rolls. That probably needed some clarification because it's not directly clear from the book.
Can Lethael target herself with her own Crone Leech ability? She does not have the Crone Bound trait, so no.
I like this next one. How does regeneration interact with the withdraw order? The answer is, like any other movement order, declare the order and roll for regeneration, then proceed with the rest of the order. So the regeneration happens first. So essentially, it makes your nerve test easier because you could potentially regen.
And it's consistent with how it's always been, right? You're basically declaring what you're doing, and then you regen. Can a shambling unit affected by the Salamander command Will of the Oceans be surged into combat? Yes. Commands that do not allow charges only limit charges in the movement phase.
Should the base alien command order for Glory of the Hegemon read large infantry? No. The heavy infantry wording was left in for future proving in case such infantry units were introduced in the list.
Well, next up, this one does make my head hurt a little bit. So question, when a unit routs all enemy units engaged with it except a yielding individual, is it counted as having routed all enemy units, and can it do a post-combat order? As a yielding individual can be ignored when moving and shooting, even if engaged with it, is a post-combat order considered moving and therefore can ignore the yielding individual? So sort of two questions. The answer is the intent is that you can always ignore yielding heroes. So yes, you get your post-combat orders. The only thing you cannot do is end the post-combat order movement on top of the yielding hero. Following that up, the next question is also related to yielding. It says if you withdraw and touch an enemy yielding hero, can you choose to ignore it? And if you go completely through it, you are safe. What if your move is not long enough to end clear? Then you are forced to not ignore it and get routed, is the question. The answer is correct. You can ignore it if you move completely through it, but if you do not and are forced to end the move on top of it, then you are routed.
Which would be the same for wavering and stuff. It's just all consistent.
You can't end your moves on top of other stuff, basically, is one of the key things in this game, right?
Where are we up to? So yeah, a unit with ranged attacks charges a yielding hero in the shooting phase. Question 1, could the unit shoot at the same hero? Question 2, could it shoot at another unit within its shooting range? Then in the combat phase, it will still fight the hero normally. You cannot shoot the yielding hero you're in base contact with because in order to be able to shoot, you must ignore the hero. But if you ignore it, there's nothing to shoot, basically.
It's logic, though. It makes sense.
Yeah. And yes, the unit can shoot against a different enemy unit and then fight the hero in combat. So that's interesting because you've charged the unit. So that's one that's going to feel a bit weird, I think.
Yeah, because you usually can't shoot if you're engaged, but because you're engaged with a yielding unit, you ignore them.
You can shoot something else, but you can't shoot it because
Correct.
It's invisible.
Correct. It's got the cloak of invisibility.
Yeah, with cloak of invisibility, you can't shoot it.
And you wouldn't normally be able to charge and shoot.
Because you're engaged with a unit, and you can't shoot when you're engaged with a unit.
Yeah, so I can see the gamification of that, where someone might feel like they've blocked something up with their yielding individual and that keeps something out of range. And then that ranged unit just goes, oh, well, I'll charge it because that'll, drag me forward a little bit and still be able to
So using yielding individuals as chaff?
Can't chaff with it yielding because even if you charge in, there is no disorder anymore. You just ignore them straight up. End of story.
You can't do the 1 point of damage and then,
doesn't matter.
You're just done.
This is a funny one, guys. This next one. It says, question, a unit is charged in the rear or flank by a yielding unit. If a charged unit is given a halt order and destroys the yielding unit, it may then make a forward move of 1d6 inches and potentially charge another unit. This forward direction would actually be away from where the yielding unit was. Is this correct? The answer is yes. And it's one of those weird things, right? You charge a yielding unit in the back or the side, get killed, and then you get the free charge forward. Let me ask you guys this. What scenario would you ever want to do this? Because most yielding characters are not very good in combat. So I'm just wondering, and I guess maybe they're just hoping to get a wound on you. Maybe the unit's already devastated and they're just trying to force a nerve test, maybe, but not good odds. Next up, we have a question that says, when charging through a yielding hero, do you have to end your move step clear, or can you end up hovering over the unit hero and continue to pick up a line and slide to the final position? And the answer is only the final position matters. You can cross the hero freely until your final position. Then check if you cleared it. I mean, essentially what Jeremy said before, you have to end off the unit.
Yeah. Are magic missiles affected by spell warden on -1? Yep. If two charging units are positioned so neither is one to one side relative to their target, can the charging player choose which side the unit moves to? Yes.
This next one is interesting. It's basically asking if you can cast, is it the intent of Host Shadow Beast for any unit that can take Arcane Library spells to be able to cast Host Shadow Beast on themselves regardless of the unit type? And they're saying Scud, from the Ratkin list, is that possible to cast Host Shadow Beast on itself?
I was surprised by this one because the way that the spell is structured in the book, to me, with commas and things, suggests that, like, I would have thought you could always cast it on itself if you're a spellcaster. So Julius is probably another example of this, who I think is a spellcaster, but is not one of the listed types in the spell. So basically, you can only do it if they're infantry or heavy infantry. I think they're the two. Or no, infantry or cavalry.
The next question is, does a unit benefit from Iron Resolve if it passes a withdraw nerve test? The answer is yes. Question, does Dread work while a unit tries to withdraw? The answer is yes. So there's a lot of simple ones that just, it's common sense. Maybe they didn't specifically state it, but it makes sense, And then the next question, does routing from a failed withdraw nerve test count as being destroyed in combat? Yes. If somebody tried to pull that shenanigan.
Yeah. If you roll We Are Doomed for a nerve test, so double sixes, and the result doesn't exceed the unit's nerve, does it get to force the dice to re-roll if it is near a source of very inspiring? The dice are not re-rolled for a We Are Doomed results from combat due to inspiring or very inspiring. We Are Doomed results from ranged attacks may be re-rolled. When they first wrote this, they didn't reference the difference between combat and ranged. So, yeah. Yep, so that makes sense. Can multiple sources of brutal be combined? Yes. For example, Edge Grenadiers with brutal D3 may receive a Gastromancy command to receive brutal plus D3, and also have the Pipes of Terror for brutal +1. If you roll well, this unit could end up with brutal 7.
I got to have that in my list, man.
The key there being that it's because it's sources of additional, so the plus.
You can have one base number, but then the rest of them have to be plus. Next up, we have, is the pivot and all movement in a charge considered together in a charge? Can you pivot through allies while charging? So the answer is only the actual pivot can go through allies that aren't also charging, enemy units or impassable terrain, and must end clear before continuing the charge.
So that's the same as what it was basically previously, is that you can get up to the unit. If you need to pivot to get past it, that's fine, as long as your pivot ends clear.
Right. Next up, he says, the question is, can the Crystal Pendant of Retribution be combined with things like Last Breath in the Abyssal Dwarf list? And the answer is yes.
Is a unit with a special rule that applies to friendly units, e.g. rallying, affected by that special rule? Not always. The term friendly units does not apply to the unit itself. The unit with the rule must be specifically mentioned as a beneficiary to benefit from a rule, for example, like that does in auras. If a chariot base that is engaged and is flanked by something small, like, say, an individual, can it use the wraparound rule to get off reform into the small unit's flank? Answer is extremely rare. It has to be a single chariot model and a small attacking unit, say a 40-minute base. Very narrowly, the chariot's midpoint will be in the flank of the arc of the small unit. So, yep, it's fine.
Maybe somebody in Texas cares, but I don't. This is never going to come up in the game. Next up, we got when declaring a multi-charge that includes one or more units with a random wild charge value. If the wild charging units does not roll high enough, do the other units involved still have to charge? The answer is they all declared a charge. So the answer is yes, even if the one that you had wild charge doesn't make it, the rest have to go. Which Dylan has been trying to persuade me that the way we do wild charge now is stupid, and I still think it's okay, but I'm going that direction. That it's like, dang, it's a real risk, right? Declaring a charge and then not getting it.
But the real benefit of wild charge is the threat projection, right?
Sure.
And the board control. So I don't think you lose that benefit.
That's true, but in this case, it's a problem. If you're going to send another unit and a wild charge unit into combat, if the wild charge doesn't show up, the unit's probably going to get eviscerated. So, you know what? I'm playing it the way it is, and we'll see. Maybe it's another cover situation. Maybe like a year from now, I will change my tune. But right now, it's fine. They got some other stuff in here. Like this one's about storm. I'm not going to read it, but essentially, it's just telling you how to determine the direction when you're casting, chain lightning from the shrines and how it interacts with Big Shield. Very, very situational, but I guess that it must have come up maybe at one point.
I think when you read it carefully, it's obvious, but I think people had just made it, basically partially read it and assumed it kept bouncing.
The next one, the question was, when splitting melee attacks amongst different enemy units for a friendly unit that has variable attacks depending on what type of unit it is attacking, what is the method for determining the variable number of attacks? For example, a unit with D3 Slayer special rule is engaged with a monster unit and an infantry regiment unit and splits attacks against them both. As per page 35, if a unit has a random number of attacks, first roll to determine how many, then decide to allocate them. If these extra attacks can only affect certain unit types, such as Slayer or Rampage, you can only allocate those specific attacks to the units that qualify. So you roll your Slayer, and whatever your Slayer is, it has to go against the thing that you have, the option that is Slayer.
That just makes sense.
Yeah, seems clear.
As Jeremy was reading, I'm like, this isn't even a question. Like, it's in the book. Again, though, sometimes maybe a little additional clarification make it easier for people to understand. But
visions from the Rift, visions from the Grand Seer, and Master Tactician. So basically, these are all redeployment abilities, right? Are they all intended to account as the same ability, and players should roll off when both have these? Yes, that just makes sense.
All right, this next one, guys. This one makes my head hurt.
This is one of the bigger ones, I think.
So I'm going to let Jeremy read it because I think we need his clairvoyance.
And I'm going to tell you how I understand it and how some of the conversation has been about it. Okay. Concerning interpenetration. You had me at interpenetration. Concerning interpenetration when
that
moving.
Too big.
Yeah. Concerning interpenetration when moving with pivots, page 17. The rules say you cannot end a unit's move on top of another unit, and units must, of course, still end their pivot and their entire move clear of any units. If you have two infantry hordes, one behind the other, but staggered such that about 2 inches of one unit is behind the other unit, can the unit that is behind move forwards until it overlaps the unit in front, then pivot such that it clears the unit it is overlapping? That seems to meet the requirements that the pivot and entire move ended clear of any units. But are you allowed to start the pivot while overlapping a friendly unit? Yes, that is fine, as long as you only move through friendly units and not a part of a charge. Then you can effectively move through units as if they were not there. So how I understand this, the idea is, I'm not charging, right? I'm just issuing a move. I move on top of a unit. I'm now above that unit. As long as me pivoting now ends that pivot free of that unit, even though I began the pivot while on top of it, that's a legal move. As long as the pivot can begin while on top of another unit, but the pivot and wherever you are at the end of the movement cannot be on top of that unit or another one of your units.
Jeremy is correct.
And that's new. That's not been ever in the game before.
No, and I think that's the problem. I don't think that's necessarily not clear in the rules. I think it's more of a legacy thing, right? You always had to end each stage of something clear, whereas now they're basically saying, yep, just as long as your pivot ends clear, you can start it over the top of the unit. So again, I think it's just one of these ones that's making the game more maneuverable and not disallowing so many things.
I think the goal is to make it easier to move around the game, right? But this is so different from what instinctually we've always done, that the instinct is, well, you can't do that. Well, this is a new version of the game in which you can do this. But that's a good clarification.
I'm not sure Rob's still got concussed fish face on.
It does make it easier, right? At the end of the day, it's cleaner. Well, next up, they have a question. Do all relative positioning conditions in the rulebook apply to reform moves as part of the multi-charge? The answer is yes. All right, so next up we have a question. If the random movement of forward takes you into a new combat from a yielding unit and the unit it took you into was already in combat and already fought and had a morale check happen, will this new combat trigger a new morale check? Guys, what the hell is a morale check?
It's I don't know.
Does he mean a nerve test?
Yes, must be.
So the answer is yes, it will. This is a new combat. Note that any other units in that combat that have already attacked this turn cannot then do so again in the same turn as a result of this overrun. That's not new. That's even 3.5. You could have done that before, right? And the rest of the book is really errata. There are a couple in here that we probably need to mention, like the really common sense one that you can't get blast on Shadow Beast, because that's stupid. It's not right.
There's separate attacks. Yeah.
Loot counters. I think there were some changes around loot counters, right? If you withdraw, you drop it. Heroes can score in scenarios now, but heroes with the individual rule can't hold loot counters, which makes sense, right? Because otherwise, your ability to pick it up and and then just run away is just so good. Did I miss anything from the loot counters? Those seem to be the biggest.
No, that's the biggest thing. And then there's just confirming some things that should have inspiring or some points changes. Goblin Blaster, should have Blast D6 combat. Oh, and Void Touched Weavers are back.
Yep.
No, down the unit, because was that left out of the book?
Correct. They dropped it out of the book. That's right.
And then further down, we've got the confirmation of that. That the River Guard didn't get passed through the formula. People can go, oh, that's too much all at once, but I think the formula is just treating dual shooting combat with the combination of fly in general. It's generally just treating it too harshly. The 50-60 has nothing to do with the fact that, someone proxied up a bunch and took a whole heap to that. Like, that just made it stand out that it had been missed. The 50-60 isn't a decision on that's what it needs to be. It's consistent with the other overpricing on those units.
Well, the good news, though, he made him a proxy army, so he'll just run him as something else now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Everything else is pretty clear. Bunch of typos, yeah.
Clean up. But so, what do you guys think of the fact? I mean, it's fine. I think it's serviceable. I think they answer some questions that they didn't need to answer. But I guess if you're getting the questions, I guess that means at least one person didn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it repeatedly. Isn't this raw? But I guess if it's frequently asked questions, but I'm not sure how frequent some of them have been. It feels, at face value, it feels too long.
Well, my 2 cents is you got to put this on the companion. The fact that I got to log into my Mantic account to download a free document seems to me kind of like a big pain in the butt. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, I know in the scheme of things, it's first world problems, but I would love in the companion to have a section to find the FAQ.
Yeah, I mean, the always logging in to get the PDFs is one thing, but to me, the bit that doesn't make sense is why have we got different release days?
Oh, for the companion? Why are we waiting now for it to be on the companion?
Yeah, and that was always planned because it was in the first email or something. It was like, here's your FAQ, but it's going into the companion on March 5. Why?
The promise was that the companion and everything's supposed to be together and seamless.
Why not just delay this till March 5 and give us everything on the one day? I just don't get it.
I don't either. Doesn't make any sense to me.
That does not make sense.
No, doesn't make. And then now my expectation then is when this is implemented on the companion, that you have no excuse for it not being implemented on the companion correct. Because not only is it been delayed, but you have extra time. So to me, if this now gets implemented on the companion and there's mistakes everywhere in it being implemented on the companion, I don't know. That's no bueno. No bueno for me.
I totally agree.
Well, guys, it's been fun chatting. Getting caught up on what we got going on, hobby-wise, community-wise, and diving into this interesting FAQ and errata.
Well,
For sure, exciting.
we'll have to be back soon with our fireside. Did we pick a happy topic so we can get Happy Jeremy back?
Oh, I'm gonna leave it. You guys can decide.
And I think I'm saucy today because I was up till 2:30 in the morning trying to fix my 3D printer and I couldn't fix it.
Oh yeah. Look at the how to get filament out of your hot end.
Wait, if you take that out of context,
You just got to milk it out, baby.
Yeah, make sure I have good mobility in my filament, right? In my motility or whatever they say.
oh
My
my!
hot end.
Look at the motility on my filament.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I got all these little bits of filament everywhere.
Yeah, the ones that don't have the strong tail and go correctly. Got to get rid of those.
Why is this filament just going in circles?
Exactly.
Just whenever one of you guys says something about baseball, the first thing that comes into my head is, have you seen my baseball?
Something About Mary. That's such a great movie. So
Yeah.
funny.
Classic
Yeah.
movie.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our walk through the first part of the Hobby Challenge, as well as the new FAQ for Kings of War 4th edition. Until next time, keep countercharging.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Countercharge. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at counterchargepodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter at countercharge15, or by commenting on the Countercharge Kings of War podcast Facebook group. If you enjoy the show, you can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Until next time, keep countercharging. Music is a composition of Kevin MacLeod and is licensed under Creative Commons.